Hello and welcome to Hugh's Reviews, the place for movie views and spoiler clues. Some of you may remember that my interview with Vin Diesel did not go so well. I brought up the upcoming Fast and Furious spin-off, Hobbs and Shaw. Things were said. Hurtful things. There was talk of a restraining order. But there comes a time when you have to move on from the past and accept that what is done is done. Call me, Vin. I miss you. So, even though it doesn't star a certain slice of charismatic man candy, let's talk about Hobbs and Shaw. When you go into a movie like Hobbs and Shaw, you have certain expectations. You know it's going to be cheesy, you know it's going to be lowbrow, but it might also be a lot of fun if you can shut down those parts of your brain that control self-preservation and higher math. What you don't expect is that even the makers of the Fast and Furious movies would be so sick of their own franchise that they'd actively make a parody of the very series that got them to the spin-off stage in the first place. And that has to be what this is. I refuse to believe that anyone involved took it too seriously, except maybe Vanessa Kirby, who throughout the movie looks desperate to be inducted into the overpaid boys club that this movie represents. I'll be honest and upfront here. I am not a fan of the Fast and Furious franchise, on general principle. I saw the first one and it was fine, but not my cup of tea. I've seen enough of the bloated, overly self-important hip-hop music video the sequels turned into to know I'm not going to enjoy subjecting myself to, what are we up to now, 9 movies? 10? Okay, whatever. Potentially 18 hours or more of increasingly physics-challenged jiggy nightmares where a bunch of car thieves save the world. I get it, there's a fan base that enjoys these movies, and I do not begrudge them that, though many of those fans take these movies far too seriously. If a briefly grumbled Vin Diesel monologue about family makes 2 hours of wisecracking batch of carjackers ollieing Ferraris out of helicopters while scantily clad women gyrating to bass-heavy strains of Shake That Ass is meaningful to you, I do not fault you in any way. I personally find deep emotional satisfaction in films that would cause many of my fellow critics to laugh at me derisively. So I get it. You like the movies. And some of you really connect with them on a deeper level. I am not making fun of you. I am making fun of the movies. They're not, as I said, my cup of tea. Or, in this case, Cristal. The only reason I agreed to watch Hobbs and Shaw, and no, I will not call it Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw if only for brevity's sake, is because of the people involved and the trailers. I enjoyed Dwayne Johnson's hard-working, easy charm, even if most of his movies are, well, over the last decade, have been garbage. And I like Jason Statham's hard-bitten London backstreet snark and action acumen. Toss into that mix what the trailers presented as an over-the-top battle versus Idris Elba's Black Superman, as he called himself, and I find myself intrigued. This is an enjoyable send-up of what the franchise has become, and they knew that going in. To be sure, the elements that the Fast and Furious movies are known for are all present. Fast cars, hot women bearing the goods, laughable Tony Hawk physics, and a soundtrack that would not seem out of place in any given pump and grind club. But the way it's presented here allows the audience to laugh with the movie instead of at it. For the most part. Oh my goodness, I have forgotten to talk about the plot. Something this movie did not forget about, which gives it a leg up over other movies of its kind. The plot actually kind of matters here, so allow me to digress. An MI6 operation to retrieve a virus goes horribly wrong when leather-clad bad boy Brixton arrives to kill them all and get the goodies. Brixton, played by Idris Elba as though winking at his fans, is a technologically enhanced human who can toss a car with ease, but seems incapable of dispatching our heroes Hobbs and Shaw later. Again, I digress. The lone remaining agent makes the strange decision to inject herself with the deadly virus instead of, taking the vial with her, thereby keeping the virus safe, but putting a ticking clock on her own mortality. One would think don't inject yourself with a world-ending super virus would have come up during mission prep. But anyways, Hobbs is portrayed by Dwayne Johnson doing his best impression of, Dwayne Johnson. He is approached by CIA operative Ryan Reynolds playing, Deadpool if he got his face back, to retrieve the virus. He interrupts Hobbs' daddy-daughter breakfast to bring him the assignment. This was actually one of my favorite scenes because Johnson seems so at ease with Eliana Sua as his daughter Sam that you can really see the real Dwayne come through and how he must be with his own kids. He has an ease with children that made not only his part of the scene believable, but definitely made the young actress feel more comfortable. I guarantee many of those smiles were genuine. Meanwhile, Statham is approached by yet another CIA man to go after the virus, and only becomes interested when he finds out his sister is the target. Sorry if that ruined the reveal for you, but so did the trailers, because they like ruining reveals in trailers now because Hollywood is full of idiots and they assume we are just as dense. From there, the plot convenience fairy runs wild over the screenplay, leading our duo and then trio across the world in an effort to save the sister, save the world, and force feed us the message that yes, the series is still all about family. There were rumors that Statham and Johnson had a dislike of being in the same room, and if that's true, then the way this movie is shot definitely bears that out. The amounts of time that you can see them in the same shot could be counted in sparse minutes. Their back and forth moments are framed so one is never actually visible with the other unless absolutely necessary. Their conversations are done in a shot-reverse shot style that was either a bad artistic decision by director David Leitch or a necessity of their inability to work together. Either way, this is the worst way to play two characters off one another visually, as you lose any real give and take by the constant perspective shifts. It was saved by careful editing, but the lack was still present. Hey, perhaps those rumors are unfounded, and maybe they're better actors than I give them credit for. But when you do see them in the same shot, they look like they'd rather disembowel one another than look at each other. Granted, that is part of their character chemistry and adds to the presentation on screen. But either way, you can really tell Hobbes and Shaw genuinely dislike one another. Whether a feud between the actors or a feud between the characters, the tension feels real, and that was appreciated. When it comes to the Fast and Furious family stuff, this movie delivers in a more endearing way than should have been expected. Helen Mirren as Shaw's mother is delightfully sly, though I really wonder why'd she be in this. Maybe like Judi Dench in Chronicles of Riddick, she was banking on a popularity bump among millennials? And then we have Vanessa Kirby as Shaw's sister Hattie, the infected MI6 agent. She holds her own against the big boys and is definitely able to carry off the hard-as-nails, I don't take no crap attitude that solidifies her place as a player in the story. Then you have Hobbes' family. As I said, Eliana Sua as Hobbes' daughter really delivered. Though a tad forced, the realization that Hobbes is estranged from his Samoan roots, thereby leaving his daughter adrift when she tries to make a family tree, is actually pretty heartbreaking. The desire to connect to your roots is a deeply human psychological urge. Then when Hobbes is later forced to take Shaw and his sister to Samoa to ask for his family's help, it makes the big brute vulnerable in a way we haven't seen before. He is at the mercy of a family he destroyed and then seemingly abandoned. The way the matriarch of that family brings them all together, reminding them of what family is, of what family stands for, actually made my cold heart swell. I give nothing but credit to Lori Palinese Tuinaso, and I know I'm butchering that name, playing the mom, for every single scene she's in. First off, she's as natural can be. I believed every word she said. If she threatened to hit me with one of those slippers of hers, I'd be more cowed by her than by Johnson and Statham combined. That woman has a will of steel. Do not piss her off. And her sweet, welcoming side is equally as powerful. You want to respectfully ask if you may come to dinner and then listen to her bright laughter as she tells you embarrassing stories about her sons late into the evening. This was not a performance, this was a real woman, and I would be honored to meet her someday. One of the moments I most wanted to see realized from the trailers was the Samoan haka, the war chant, performed by Hobbes and his brothers as they faced off with Brixton's mercenaries. Unfortunately, we only get to see Johnson's straining, veiny face and get fleeting glimpses of the brothers around him as they stomp and chant. I understand the studio wanted the focus to be on their biggest star, and Johnson does deliver a frightening, face-contorting performance in the native language. But if this is supposed to be about family coming together and the cultural setting, pull back for a moment and let us get a sense of the power of the haka, not just the performance of one man. Hobbs and Shaw is definitely a parody of what made the Fast and Furious series last as long as it has. It is a violent yet somehow bloodless PG-13 romp where the invulnerable heroes wrote it into their contracts that they were incapable of losing a fight. And yet somehow it comes across as more of a wink to the audience in a charming, hey, see what we did there kind of way than it had any right to. Is this a great movie? No, not by any means. But it has a self-awareness that both mocks and honors what came before. If you're a fan of the series as a whole, and if you have a spare afternoon, go and see it in theaters and ignore the controversy surrounding it. You will not be disappointed. For the rest, like me, who could just do with a little bit of testosterone-laden goofy fun, see it at home and avoid the crowds. And that's it today for Hugh's Reviews. I'd like to thank Moons of Vega Photography and all the listeners out there for your continued support. Keep dreaming, drive safe, and to my Mandoade out there, Alit Orishaya Taldin. Happy viewing!